The education system hasn't changed. And so my question to you, Teeka, is how do people get educated?
Well, I think the first step is to get comfortable with the technology. So go watch a bunch of videos on YouTube. How to set up a wallet, how to stake tokens, what is Uniswap, what is Aave, what is Compound, and go spend 5 or 10 hours, literally 5 or 10 hours watching free videos. There's so much incredible information out there. Then get $100, $200, whatever the equivalent is in your local currency. Buy some ETH, put it on a MetaMask wallet, and start messing around with all these different types of staking protocols that are out there. And again, there are excellent step-by-step guides on the internet, step-by-step guides on YouTube, and put 20 bucks in, put $10 in, but play around, get educated, and do it with a small amount of money, because you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna send money to the wrong address and you're not gonna be able to get it back. You're gonna send Bitcoin to an Ethereum address or Ethereum to a Bitcoin address. You're gonna make mistakes. So just make mistakes on small dollars and get educated. I promise you that investment of time, 10, 15 hours, will put you so far ahead of everyone. You're automatically going to start knowing, oh, okay, this protocol is getting a lot of use. Okay, this is something I want to have a part of, or at least own a little bit of, or wow, this protocol, they talk big, but there's nothing really going on. And so you start getting into the community. It's still early enough where you can get into the community and you can learn things directly from the community. Of course, you've got to be careful. There are scammers and pump and dumpers and all that kind of stuff out there. So stick with the big protocols and start taking yourself up the learning curve. And I know you've been doing a lot of work educating people on how DeFi works as well.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we do. We start small, like that's $100 or $200. And Teeka, you're right. Invariably, my students make mistakes. I tried to send 10 ETH and I got the wrong address. And I said, okay, you made a mistake, not 10 ETH, $10 worth of ETH. And they said, you made a mistake that cost you $10 or $20, better than it costing you $20,000. So you're learning all these things with some bumps and bruises. You burn your finger on the stove, but you still got your hand. Like you said, everybody here, if you don't have this now, take $100. Get some ETH on a centralized exchange. That'll take you a little bit to set up. You'll understand that process and start playing around. The community is amazing. You have to be careful for sure, but not only is this the future, Teeka, not only is this an incredible investment opportunity, I mean, this is your future reality, right? As finance.
You owe it to yourself to learn about this. If you're sitting there thinking, this is too difficult, or this is just a fad, this will be your life every day, all day. Within 5 to 10 years, when you want to buy insurance, when you want to buy stocks, when you want to get involved in the investment world, you're going to be interacting with a smart contract. It might have a prettier user interface, an easier to use user interface, but you're going to be working with a smart contract. And the reason why I can be so confident in that is that corporations, and especially Wall Street, everything is about reducing costs. So if you can cut your costs by 70 or 80 or 90%, which you can do with certain applications of blockchain technology, you're going to adopt it. So I talked about trade settlement before. There's one side of Wall Street that never wants to see trade settlement go to the blockchain because they make so much money with keeping everything obscure. And then there's another side that absolutely wants to move everything to the blockchain because they spend $20 billion a year clearing trades. There must be at least 500,000 people around the world that are employed just clearing trades. Literally with a piece of paper like this saying, and they're marking off trades. They're still using paper and pencil.
I remember, when I was at Bankers Trust in '93, I had direct lines to the Mercantile Exchange and the Board of Trade, and we would trade thousands of Eurodollar contracts on the Merc every day. And at the end, we would go through all of our trades. And I remember asking the guy something about how much do you get for clearing? And I remember he said something like, oh, it's like $2 or $3 a contract. And I remember thinking briefly, I was too busy with my own P&L, thinking, man, that's a lot of money, And so again, Teeka, you have a great point. There's a whole chunk of the banking industry that relies on this behind the scenes that no one sees, but it ends up taking a chunk out of your savings, income, the world GDP, doesn't it? And so these inefficiencies are going to help everybody and help volume and help liquidity, and it's only a matter of time.
Correct. It is only a matter of time. And the reason why, again, I can confidently say that, which I couldn't confidently say 4 years ago. I said, there's enormous risk here, but the opportunity is so vast. You just take a small position, and listen, if it doesn't work, it goes to zero. You don't lose that much money, but because we're so early, if it does work, you're going to see monumental gains. And that's absolutely been proven true. But we're in a different phase now. Bitcoin, and I talk about Bitcoin because it is the underpinning asset of this entire ecosystem that kicked everything off. It is the linchpin asset. It's the dollar, if you will, meaning the funding currency of everything. Right? Bitcoin and Ethereum. They are the premier funding assets. I guess the equivalent of in our world, it would be like US Treasuries, right? The capital markets are basically built off US Treasuries and the rehypothecation of US Treasuries. So the point I'm trying to make is that now Bitcoin is being widely accepted by the financial infrastructure. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency here in the United States last year gave the green light for banks to start actively custodying cryptocurrency and actively working with cryptocurrency actors. That's like the Pope coming down, and giving you that holy benediction. You kiss the ring and you say, okay, you can work in this space. So once that happened, that opened the doorway for institutional adoption of Bitcoin. Well, if you have institutional adoption of Bitcoin and you have institutional adoption of crypto, that means the doorway is now open to the institutional adoption of decentralized finance protocols. So to me, it's a done deal. You pull back the camera, you look at how the chain tracks are being built across the country with this destination of crypto and DeFi and this big train loaded up with institutional money. You don't have to have a degree from MIT like yourself.
So the government, sometimes it seems like it wants to scare people out of crypto, but then if you read between the lines like you're doing, Teeka, then the institutional money's going in. So they can't stop that, because then you're literally stopping people's bread from getting buttered, and it means they can't get the places in the Hamptons, and it is a little bit of a boys and girls club in that sense.
Yes, you've got to look at the economic incentives. If you really want to get far in life,
follow the money.
You got to follow the money. You've got to follow the money. And the money is flooding into this space. And not for ideological reasons, Brian, but because they see Coinbase made $2 billion in profit last quarter. Binance's profit is bigger than Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank's been around for more than a century. It's literally the Bank of Germany, and they're making more money. So I want to impress upon everybody watching today, as greedy as you think you may have been in your life, as greedy as you think somebody in your life has ever been, the greed of a Wall Street banker will eclipse anything you can possibly imagine. Imagine yourself at the most rapacious, greediest you've ever been, times it by 10, and you're beginning to understand the greed of a typical bank.
And so Teeka makes a great point here, and this is really important. When JP Morgan's institutional investors are buying, it's not like there's some dude out in the Midwest who's running, billions of dollars in a teacher's pension fund, suddenly believes in the blockchain. It's because he sees an asset that's going up and he doesn't want to be left behind. I want some of that. That's what he says, right? I remember we had someone call up Bankers Trust in the 90s, and they literally called up a salesperson and said, I want to buy some derivatives. And everybody laughed on the floor because we all knew, you mean a swap or an option, or do you want this or that? And they said, I just want some derivatives. And everybody laughed, but we shouldn't have laughed because it's the same type of mentality, right? People want to get in on it. It doesn't mean there's also not people that understand this tech, but it's an asset class that's growing and the world wants to be a part of it, and you can't stop that train.
Correct. Yeah, it's the train has left the station, and if you're sitting there saying, well, that train shouldn't exist, and that train shouldn't be on these tracks, and these tracks shouldn't exist, and this shouldn't happen, and this isn't real. Well, you're going to get run over by that train, and you're going to find out just how real it really is.
I think, whether it's intentional or not, our lack of education allows us to be exploited financially. And we've kind of been grown up. With Robert Kiyosaki, when he comes here, he said, Brian, when I was a kid in class, I said, when are we going to learn about money? And he said, we don't teach you about money.